All right, then. I am live. I am hopefully audible, and I am supposedly captioned. So all of those things should be true. I am audible. Awesome. Thank you, Wolfball. And now I should be visible. Boop. There I am. All of me. I'm here. More links there. And this is not the button I wanted. There we go. Actually, it worked. There we go. And that is the system that we're using. It's a Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition Victorian Age. Such a mouthful. But that is what we are doing here. Basically, that's what we're here to discuss today. Yeah, they usually do a decent job on the covers, things like that. Basically, though, I am 100% certain this is just like I'm like, no, we're in Joanne. You can pick up this fabric that they've just taken a picture of, assuming it's not just a random stock picture that they bought off a stock picture and they're searching purple. That's probably velvet. It looks velvet-ish. The purple velveteen. It would be appropriate for the area. Velvety brocade, yeah. Yep. But basically, like the scroll work and other stuff is nice. In any case, so what we are here to talk about. Hi, welcome to the stream. We are, basically, I say we, basically, there's some in chat, but it's mostly me here on the stream itself. We are here today to talk about how to use Lorelink, which is, I can turn this back off. Bye. Farewell, you'll be back. We are here to talk about campaign planning. In particular, we're going to be planning a campaign in Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition, The Victorian Age. And we are basically going to be playing that game here on Friday. It'll be Friday starting at 1 p.m. We will be playing that game, going for about 4 hours or so, 4 to 5 hours. We aim for that time. That's basically the general time frame I like to plan and use for a one-shot adventure to really get a good experience for the adventure. I feel like that gives you a good chance to get in, have some inciting incidents, have a plot, and then resolve that plot. About 4 to 5 hours. Is about the time range I like going for that. I will shorten it for something which is really improv heavy. Like if I'm running Toon, basically Toon D&D, another games that basically we like to run, it's incredibly improv heavy, and as such it is heavy and basically heavy and difficult on the DMs, because it is basically, most of your guiding rails as a GM are gone when you play Toon. Walls aren't necessarily walls. Doors aren't necessarily doors, and you have to be on your feet and ready to deal with just about everything. And 4 to 5 hours is basically about the point that your players start to rebel and get up and leave, unless you really have them strapped in to their chairs for something that's really exciting and interesting. So that's about the length I like to plan for. So we are going to be basically planning it using, in that direction, you can see over there, Lorelink, which is our campaign management tool system. It is useful for GMs, DMs, storytellers in this particular case, lore keepers, animators if you're doing Toon, whatever your title is, for planning out adventures, and basically whether they be long campaigns or one shots. It's a good way of getting your thoughts organized, your notes in place, be able to reference back and forth, and not only when you're planning the adventure, like what we're going to be doing today, whether you be pulling from a pre-made adventure like we've done in the past, or pulling from basically kind of building your own, this is going to be kind of a mix of pulling from a pre-made adventure and putting our own spin on things here to build things out. Or if you're doing a longer campaign adventure, keeping track of notes, keeping track of developments, keeping track of all of the changes that basically players may throw at you. Okay. So basically, if you were here last week, we talked a little bit more. We talked a lot about the Victorian Age system and Mage and World of Darkness in particular. So if you're more interested in learning more about the system itself, check out that stream. That stream is available on our YouTube channel. You can check that out on there. All of our streams, once they are complete, they are basically because we are streaming directly there. Once they are done and complete, they get archived nice and pretty over on our YouTube channel, which you can check right there in the chat. Thank you, 20. And as such, you can basically catch up on those or catch up on past games. Like for instance, we ran a game of Vampire Vampire 20th anniversary, basically Vampire the Masquerade 20th anniversary edition, The Dark Ages, to be precise. And you can check that out on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our systems example page to check that out as well. So, what are we looking to do with this adventure? So, we talked a little bit last time about the difficulties of running Mage and the idea of the fact that Mage isn't simple. Again, basically a brief summary of it. Basically, Mage is Mage is a brand of what if X was real and existed in the shadows in the background. Streamlabs is very exuberant today. That's fine. I want you to know your timing is perfect. I guess it's about 10 minutes into the stream. Maybe that's why. It's fine. So they deal a lot of they usually have some reason why the players who are playing this particular supernatural group can't exist in the open. Vampires, it's just considered a bad idea, and basically your powers that be will hunt you down if you expose them. Their werewolf game, basically being a werewolf, freaks people out to the point where they can't function in public. Mage, the excuse is the fact that magic is reality. Basically, with magic, you are bending and twisting the fabric of reality and essentially attempting to make two distinct realities exist at the same time at the same place. And if you aren't basically, as the mage, strong enough to exert your will and exert your reality, actual reality, the current reality stays and then kicks you in the teeth for daring to try. But because of the fact that you're literally changing the consensus, because you're literally changing the scope of reality, as it were, you are basically it means the fact that you as a storyteller in this particular case had to be more loosely prepared or more over prepared, however you want to say it, for your players to be able to do just about anything or anything. So let's start by looking at the players. So before the stream started, I talked to the players for this week's sessions and asked them what characters they would be playing. So let's go over to the player section and let's go ahead and start to add them in. So at least I have, if not the full character sheets in here, at least ideas that I can reference to be like, oh, okay, that's what these characters are. This is their general skill set, etc., etc. So, we got Mendoza as one of our first ones. Can I actually grab that picture? I'm curious. How well behaved are you, PDF? It's not great, but we'll take it. Whoop. Where's my crop button? Is that my crop button? There's my crop button. Think. Hey, the remove background button in MS Paint mostly worked. We'll count that as good. The PDFs are well behaved. Well, it's always a question, basically, if I select an image, basically a picture of an image, what am I going to get when I actually pull it out? The answer is sometimes I will get the image that I want, and sometimes I will just get something wild. This time it was decently well behaved, so we'll go ahead and save that out. As I'm confronted with arcade carpeting. But that's a entirely different stream, in case you want to know about basically Mark and his quest to recreate his hometown arcade's carpeting. Very exciting. I was very excited to discover that I found another place that had that carpeting. It was great. Alright, so, credit player. Character name is Mendoza, and that's going to be Tony. We'll play that. Let's grab an image. Let's upload a new image. Pull that Mendoza. One feature we don't have that we probably need to add in here is basically, I don't currently have a create new folder option when you're importing a new file. That is a weakness of this current system. But I don't want to just dump it in. Legacy of Lies is maybe just people. People is fine. But we'll be a little bit more space. Actually, what's this do? Mendoza 20. Yeah, there we go. Let's pull that image in. Hopefully the basically, I believe maximum style size is 10. We should be fine. Victorian Age 20, Mendoza. There we go. There's our cowboy wizard. Right. Let's put a good alt text on. Actually, let's. Player character, Hollow Earth, M20 Age. Cool. There's some keywords on there for future reference. Which could, I don't like the quotes. Get rid of the quotes. Ugh. A Hun belt, yes. Basically, to defeat the Hun, he wears a belt. What's the best way of describing just that wrap? I'm sure there's an actual name for what that wrap is. Serape, thank you. I got that. I don't need to do that again. Okay. This is a record field. You lost my... When did you lose my image? Thank you. I must have accidentally clicked it off. Okay. So there's our cowboy. All right. So this is Tony. This is Mendoza. You are a cowboy, a billiards hustler, a hired gun, a bounty hunter, and a prospector. All right, let's pull them in. Put them under people. People, aka my folder where my folder which is a quest against AI images, because boy howdy, when you're looking up basically trying to find reference images, and you're basically going through a stock photo site, boy howdy, there are a lot of where did you put my thing? I just uploaded you. I wonder if it defaulted back to home when I wasn't looking. Well, let's go find it. That's the fun part about doing things. Why am I going to images.google.com? That is not where my images are stored. My images are stored on my thing. I'm doing great. It's fine. Filter images by... Not there. Nope, not there. Actually, we actually do have a search here. Could actually use our search. Tell it to actually do a deep search. Didn't find any images. I wonder if I didn't actually upload it. That'd be annoying. I don't know why I didn't actually upload. Why did you fail me? Live on stream. Okay, cool. That's what we do. So that's the fun part about doing things live. That might be a bug we'll have to deal with. And there's that M20 people. Survey. Brands. Of course, you know, I am assuming, by the way, to basically Tony, and or 20. If basically I am assuming gender. If I am wrong in assuming the gender, please correct me. Mendez says male according to the PDF. Thank you. Oh, it's in the PDF. Oh yeah, there it is. A beaten Stetson. That's a Stetson? I don't know if I described that as a Stetson. Oh, I know why. That's what happened. I clicked on it, then I clicked off of it, and that is what removed it. Got it. Okay. Save. Image has been added. Okay. Apparently my internet may be being a little flaky in terms of actually getting things up. I don't know why. It is not actually uploaded images. The PDF addresses genders of all the characters. Thank you. Like, normally I'd expect it to be in the top area of the character sheet, but the character sheet doesn't actually have a spot on it. So we'll leave that out for now. Okay, moving on. That is something for me to look at in the future. But we will go ahead and identify them by their sect. Or their concept, rather. There we go. I could dump, basically, so I've got two different boxes here. I've got character description and character sheet. Player sharing we'll address a little bit later. So, basically, if I wanted to, I could put the entire description that they have. They have a relatively long description in here. If I wanted to reference it directly, I could put that in there. It would, basically, that's not actually a terrible idea. Let's grab that. Make you disappear. And then go. Use my favorite cleanup PDF tool. Deal with that. There's personality. We'll grab the second half. Basically, I'm grabbing the parts which are probably... We're going to pull out the parts which are useful, as it were. I want to highlight those. Appearance is less important to me. But the big things I'm going to want to pull out here, and I'm going to put those towards the top. Basically, because this will be important for when I'm plotting things out. So, just, like, how do I expect, basically, these characters to kind of react in certain types of situations? May be important. So, character stats, however, that's a little bit messier. If I was running this as a much longer term campaign, I would either pull stats out into their own custom fields, or I would, I do want to actually also pull out, this information will be somewhat important. It would be more important than a longer term. The affiliation is with the Sahajya. Their sect is Council of 9. I'd say good guys, but that's a relatively vague word in this. Essence is questing. Nature is survivor. And demeanor is loner. Demeanor. I can't spell. Cool. Thank you. Loner. So, I'm calling these out. They're basically at the top. Basically, affiliation and sect would be more important in a longer term game, or with people who are more involved in the world. Whereas, basically, for this one shot, I will use it to give color to the characters. And give them a little bit more kind of basically information on their background and help them kind of figure out where they fit in this world. Basically, these three are the important ones. Essence, nature, and demeanor. Nature and demeanor are the easy ones to explain. Nature is essentially, hey, what are you actually like? Underneath everything, basically, what makes you tick, as it were. Whereas demeanor, and I'm hoping I'm not getting these backwards because it's one of those where they pulled out a thesaurus and took 2 words which could mean basically close to the same thing, and they're like, these have 2 different and opposite meanings, and we're going to tell you which ones they are. Basically, nature, I believe, basically. Oh no, inner is nature, basically outward is demeanor. There it is. Okay, so demeanor is, what do people think you are? People think you are a loner, but basically underneath it all, you're a survivor. Basically, the core of your character is survivor. Basically the outward, basically this is the very basic, like we weren't going to do alignments because alignments are too restricting. So we're going to basically do something more complicated, like nature and demeanor. And so this kind of helps you basically figure out what it is. Nature is important because basically acting in tune with your nature gets you willpower points. Willpower points are essentially, and basically as a base stat, they are, hey, how strong is your character's ability to resist temptation or evil, or basically doing something they wouldn't want to do. It is also a lot of times it's that catch-all stat, luck, basically a lot of systems have, which is just, hey, where can I get extra dice to do something that I really want to do? Nature gets you willpower. Willpower is that stat that gives you those extra dice. So you end up with 2 versions of the same stat. You end up with your permanent willpower, which is that is what you roll when you are basically gritting your teeth and resisting the lure of the vampire who's telling you to basically come over and basically just walk on the thin ice. It's fine, it's safe, but you know it's not. And the basically permanent willpower is what you roll to prevent that. Your temporary willpower is essentially the pool that you have, which is, I want to be able to do something. I want to pull off something. I want to be able to, I really want this action to succeed. You can spend that willpower to get extra dice. It's also important because, as we talked at the top, magic works by exerting your will and basically stating this is reality. If you don't have will, basically if you don't have the ability to exert your will on the universe kicks you out. Is it automatic successes? It may be automatic successes. And that may be something that's changed. I will double check. But in any case, essentially it is that button you push when you're like, oh man, I want to succeed because it's my character's nature to have these things succeed. So I'm going to put, basically, most systems have that because they're like, hey, the dice can be sucky and random and everyone can have bad days. And eventually your character might reach the point where you're like, I just want this action to succeed because it's important to me as the player, because I feel it is important to my character. And the games, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Like hero points in Pathfinder, inspiration in D&D, many systems. Most systems will have that as kind of a mitigation. Yeah, fingers on the scale. A mitigation for, hey, yeah, I know we're dealing with dice, and sometimes the dice just give you bad days. We're sorry. Basically, essence is essentially kind of it's close. Basically, I won't say it's good guy, bad guy. It is their kind of push on that. Basically, there are multiple essences, but each of the essences tends to be linked to one of the traditional type of groups in the mage era. So questing basically are going to be your more free-spirited, your basically, hey, the people should be able to have magic is your questing type, where you're more technocratic, machines should rule, we know what's best for people, put everything in. Those tend to end up in pattern. Dynamic are we don't care what anyone thinks. We don't care we don't care about anything except for magic, and magic is great. Those are your marauders. Those are you have handed your character off to the GM and you've gone crazy, or you are the when your GM wants to use a villain that isn't just pure evil or pure basically pure logic and reason. You throw marauders in because they're like, woo! They're wild mages if wild mages basically always wild surged and basically and things happened. Um, Dynamic PC basically it is odd playing a dynamic PC. The problem with Marauders is the fact that once you reach a certain point, because like we said, basically your reality you put your will on reality, reality pushes back. And if you override reality, things are mostly, for the most part, good. You take maybe a little bit of feedback or kickback from the universe, straight in this one paradox and modern. Um, if you fail, universe kicks you in the teeth and says, "Bad person, what are you doing?" And you start to take consequences for that. As those consequences start to build, you either get kicked out of the universe entirety, as reality says, "We don't want you here," and it either kicks you out of the reality and sticks you in your own bubble, or reality kind of severs itself off from you and you lose contact with reality. And as such, reality just ignores you. You could do whatever you want. You could do magic as much as you want because you're not really attached to reality. The downside is your character is no longer attached to reality, and so their perception of what's going on in a particular situation is skewed by that fact. And so basically, whereas a normal person would go look at a street and be like, oh, there are people and carriages and horses, a dynamic marauder PC might look at the street and go, oh wow, it's a glorious battlefields and there are charging knights and basically people, and basically that woman in the window is a princess in the tower, and basically these dragons are running up and down the street and I must slay them all. And so you start to burn down, you start to basically start throwing things around in the street, and everybody has a bad day. Those are marauders. And of course, on the we really want evil, you end up with primordial, which is your stuff from outside the realm, stuff that is not basically not part of reality exactly, but trying to force its way in. There's your Nefandi, which can be as basically straight up evil as like demons or necromancers or other types of weird things. I say necromancers, it's not completely right, but essentially that basically think about that. Basically, spending a point of willpower, you get one automatic success. You may spend one willpower per turn this way. You can use several will points to gain successes over the course of an extended action. Okay, cool. Thank you. So it's basically those are your really bad. So your essence is questing. Most of these characters' essences is going to be questing because that's the way that this pre-gen has kind of set up. No, actually, no. As soon as I say that, I look at the first one, and their first one on this list is Primordial. Okay. Are they all just going to be? Yeah, they're all just kind of random. Pattern. Okay. I love how they describe it that way, and then they've given them a bunch of weird other random. Okay, cool. It's fine. It's fine. We'll keep going. In any case, basically putting these things on top means I have a good basically I'm going to have a quick reference to them. So I'm going to M20 has a very looser take on the essences. Okay. So basically, so that gives me an idea of how this character is meant to be played, or how the player has set up their character to be played. These are pre-made, so obviously that's going to be a little bit loose because my characters are going to bring their own twists on these characters. They're going to read through the descriptions and make their own decisions. But that gives me a general idea of basically where the background is kind of pushing them. This is the loner. This is the loner. This is the survivor. So if I'm wanting to bring them into something, I need to figure out something that appeals to them personally and not necessarily the greater good. So that's what I need. That's what I need to work on for this character when I'm bringing it in. Stat wise, again, because we're playing mage, Mage means the fact that basically reality is these people's plaything. So the big thing, basically, there's two kind of areas I want to look at for mage. It's like, okay, when you look at this character, Mendoza, come here. Whoop, where'd he go? Come back here. There you are, Mendoza. So I'm going to pop this on screen briefly. So, when I'm looking at this character sheet, I've got a couple of different things. Basically, if I'm wanting to do quick summaries on this character, there's a couple of key areas. There's basically attributes are your stats. Basically, World of Darkness tends to be like, pick an area that you're heavy focused on, and then maybe you're less focused on, and then you are what your dump stats if you're playing a D&D character, what you're the least good at. So basically, everybody has something that they're strong at, something they're okay at, and something they're not great at. And so I can kind of do a quick thing on this and be like, okay, for this character, social is their strong one. They have 4 in charisma, basically 3 in manipulation, 3 in appearance, and they have a specialization of charisma and bold. Specialization means that they get to, I keep saying this and I'm going to immediately screw it up. I believe that specializations mean the fact that you are getting to, if it applies to you, you're playing the charisma character this time, Tony. Have fun. Yeah, you're playing the charisma character, but you're playing the charisma character who's a loner and survivor. So, play that however you want. Okay. I'm having to double check this because I'm going to get it wrong. Tens. That's what I thought. It is tens. Basically, if you get tens when your successes, they count as basically 2 successes instead of 1. That is what specializing means. Meaning their upper end is a little higher. They're rolling 4 dice plus whatever their stat is, and their upper end is going to be higher than everybody else's. Okay, so this one basically, if they're being bold, they get to roll more. So more social, basically pretty good at physical, and they're okay mental. So I'm going to record that as, I'm not going to record the actual stats. I will let the players keep track of that, or the character sheet, as the case will actually be, because I will build these into character sheets on either Roll20 or Forge. But basically, okay, so this is going to be your more social character. Cool. Basically, same for the next set. Talents, skills, and knowledges. They do something similar with, okay, you put a number of points in here, a number of points in here, a number of points here. Everybody gets 3 points that they can spend wherever. But I can say, okay, this one's got more skills. So I can say their primary is skills. Their secondary is talents. Difference between skills and talents is a really, basically, knowledge is easy. Knowledge is what's stuff that's mostly mental and doesn't rely on you having physical ability to actually use. The difference between skills and talents is mostly one that they made up. Let's be honest. It is supposed to be a pure reflexes versus trained reflexes would be mostly how I would describe it. That's why brawl is in talents and martial arts is in skills, because they're trying to say brawling is just reacting and punching and doing things, while martial arts are a learned skill. But then they put art in talents, and basically every artist ever will tell you the fact that art is a learned skill. Why, thank you. Art is a learned skill, not basically not just something that you were born with. But hey, the system started in the 80s and 90s, so, sure. But that is supposed to be the knowledge is the last one. So again, this character basically is more heavily in they're heavy in their high skills. They don't have any real specializations in their skills, so nothing to really basically call out. in. So I'm going to call that out. Tertiary is knowledges. Okay. Yeah, aptitude to that basically versus skill. So streetwise, basically brawl. So they're basically their firearms, they're basically their firearms, their survival. They've got some streetwise, they've got some brawl. They've got some music. Actually, they do have a music. They have a specialty in music. They purchased a specialty in music. I guess so they can, go wah 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 whenever they want to. And then, so those are skills. So that gives me something to handle. Basically, like, okay, when dealing with this, basically, this is going to be definitely have some solid fight skills. They have solid firearms. They have solid brawl. They're not really big on alertness or awareness, so they're not going to be the ones that are keeping an eye on things. But, which is a weird situation for a cowboy not to have any points in alertness or awareness. They have 1 point in awareness, and that's it. I promise not to whistle on the mic on Friday. But for me, the part where it gets complicated is this next section, which is, and I'm going to highlight it. Their spheres. That's their last section down here. And this is backgrounds. This is probably also I should keep track of, because this is just like background stuff in the characters thing which could come up. They're allies with bounty hunters. They've got arcane. Basically avatar is their spirit that basically essentially the spirit of magic that awoke them essentially. Demence is their own pocket kind of dimension. Dream is the ability to, I believe Dream is going to be the ability to communicate with basically the Umbral Realm and things like that. Their visions and sleep. And resources is basically resources. Your background, 1 pip. How much money do you have, essentially? How much resources do you ever have at a given moment? 1 pip means, well, you have it. You're not absolutely destitute, but you're scraping by. But again, the thing I really want to focus on is these spheres. So they have mind at 3, they have matter at 2, and they have spirit at 1. So, why that's important? Why that is important is because of the fact that is essentially how can they manipulate reality. So when I'm dealing with this character, basically mind 3, matter 2, and spirit 1. On a scale of basically the spheres generally go 1 to 6. Or 1 to 5. Oh gosh, not 6. 1 to 5. And that is essentially a power level. Where 1, basically, where having a pip in it means you can use magic to interact with that particular that particular sphere. 2 means the fact that basically 1 means you can interact with it on a minor level, usually just personally. 2 basically means you could start to influence outside. 3 means the fact that you can actually pull off some area effect type of things. 4 means that you are almost being able to basically... 4 is anything logical you could do at 4. 5 is anything illogical you could do at 5. Life is a good example where, like, life 1 is some small healing. Life 2 is you're now able to heal others. Being able to heal others. Life 3 is, wow, okay, basically you're healing multiple people. You're stopping major wounds. Life 4 is you're reaching the point of yeah, you can heal just about, you can heal anybody from almost any wound, etc., etc. Life 5 is, why does it matter if they're basically, it doesn't necessarily matter if they stopped breathing or things like that. You can rewrite people entirely. You thought that was a person. No, they're actually a small chihuahua. Dear goodness. Okay. Um, basically that's the scale we're talking about. So knowing that they have mind 3, I need to be aware of the fact that, okay, at mind 3, the stuff that this character can pull off is, and I will have to have this, can be some pretty wide-reaching effects. Then the paradox erases you from existence. Yes, basically, again, the balance against that is, hey, by the way, the universe really doesn't like you screwing with it at that level. Magic, quiet. Guessing magic side by side. They usually have a section which is just examples in play. I think that's what I want. Nope, apparently that's just all sorts of other stuff. That's more storytelling stuff, less player stuff. Yeah. Okay, what I'm looking for is under, above. Okay, so mind 3 is psychic illusions, dream walking, psychic blasts. Basically that's your level at mind 3, where like mind 2 is read surface thoughts and pathetic bond, create impressions, mental impulses. So like this character has some real power over other people's minds. And basically, so I need to be aware if I'm putting this character in a situation where I am putting people who don't necessarily have a high willpower, this character can, if they want to, exert influence over them. They're not quite at the level of just flat out control conscious minds, which is at 4. But they could definitely read and influences people's thoughts. So I need to be aware of that. Matter 2, you're looking at, okay, at Matter 2, they're being able to do all sorts of weird, basically, transmutational stuff, being able to rip stuff out of walls, being able to basically matter is earth, water, forces is wind, fire is generally how it is widely described. Basically, if you're going from an elemental standpoint. So basically, you're shaping earth, you're shaping water, you're building stuff out of nothing, you're disassembling stuff out of something, etc., etc. Basically, and this is anything which is non-living. So in any situation, walls, doors, things like that, there's a chance this character could start to basically take things apart, basically rebuild them. They're basically like a character like this. You can be like, oh, you fired all your bullets out. You fired all your bullets. Well, they carry a block of metal with them that they could use Matter 2 to reshape into more bullets. Or maybe the iron door you've left there. Or etc., etc. Now, at Matter 2, they're probably not able to build an entire gun. But, hey, I need to be aware of the fact that they can pull stuff out. Yeah. And basically at Spirit 1 is basically essentially how well can you deal with the beyond realms, basically dealing with spirits and basically anything supernatural-esque you want to be throwing in there, you're wanting to throw Spirit in. Spirit is also if I decide to throw vampires in. Vampires are both dead and alive, and so they end up in a weird kind of you can see spirits, possibly dead people. That's a good way of describing it with Mom. Matter and spirit, basically, they're both dead, so you have to use matter, basically, and they still have a spirit in them, so you need to have spirit. That's the weird thing when you're like, basically, and you can start to combine those things, like, hey, I want to manipulate this and this. Okay, to get that effect, you're adding in multiple levels on multiple spheres, and that is basically that is the job of the storyteller, is to judge that, and so to be like, oh, okay, that is the that's what I need to be aware of when I'm running this is, okay, I have a character that can influence people's minds, that can roughly shape matter, and can basically possibly communicate basically on a very basic level with spirits. Um, Basically, whether it's the essence of an area, like, hey, this town has been lived in so long, the river has a spirit, or the idea of basically the idea of the very so basically sometimes it's just very ideas, the idea of basically the wilderness, the idea of greed, the idea of money, the idea of industry. Those are spirits that can basically that can exist, that could possibly be communicated with or interacted with. Um, so that's what I'm wanting to build out for each of the characters, so I can be like, oh, okay, I know what I'm dealing with here. So as a quick rundown, let's do that again, but let's do it with a slightly less digressions for the other two characters. The other one, I believe, this is 20's character, is Bridget, or Burgett, however they want to pronounce it. And this is 20. And 20's description is, what's their short concept? Shaman in training. Okay. I misspelled her name, though. Yep, that is too many I's. One less I. There we go. And then a description. Let's grab that really quickly. Does this one have personality? No, personality is on the next page. Okay, cool. Let's pull out... Oh wait, did I just copy the same thing twice? No, I didn't. Okay. It's just really bad about pulling out these things so I can actually see them. Come on. Or did it just not copy them? Yeah, it just did not actually put them in. That's fine. I don't need headings. What are you talking about? Alright, cannot spell appeal. Cool. There we go. Alright, there's that. Grab that. Dump that in here. Then we're going to add in those other areas we talked about so we get a good grasp of the character. Their essence is primordial, which means this character is definitely going to have a more rounded approach. Their affiliation is Dream Speaker. Those tend to be the shamans, whether this be from First Peoples. Council of Nine, meaning that she is not attempting to basically want magic to kind of extend out. Nature is Prophet, but their demeanor is Caregiver. Okay, so we've got that recorded. Let's bold those so we can call them out. And then we're going to call these out. Well, display issues. Have fun. Okay. And then let's go ahead and save that. For that. Character stats. So they are primary mental. With specialty perception. They are intuitive. Secondary is physical. And tertiary is social. For abilities, not a lot, but their primary is talents. Secondary of knowledges. And tertiary in skills. But they do have a crafts specialty in sewing. And then last but not least, their spheres. They are heavy in the spirit. Spirit 3. They have life 2 and correspondence 1. For those who are wondering, no, correspondence does not mean they have the ability to send letters really well. Correspondence refers to basically your ability to interact with things outside, basically away from yourself. So meaning I want to affect something over there. One is pretty much perception. Basically, I said it's within yourself, or basically the other thing it is usually is perception. So being able to sense things. Like life 1 can give you a basic life sense. Correspondence 1 meaning connections. Correspondence, yeah, connections is a better name. They decided to go with connections is the modern name for that sphere. It makes more sense. It's the idea of the fact that everything is connected together. You just have to make those connections, realize those connections as a mage, and then make those connections as you get higher up. So low level, you're mostly just kind of feeling things out, being like, oh, okay, so that's connected to that. I can sense that. I can see around corners, fun things like that. Basically, and then 2 is where you start to get into the fun things where you get to start to put things next to other things. And basically be like, I punch here, and that affects over there. But Spirit 3 is the interesting one here, as that's going to be a little bit more, basically a little bit less straightforward. So, like, the good thing with knowing this is the fact that, like, okay, so Spirit 1 is sense spirits, the perception, like we talked about. The Spirit 2 is touch spirits or manipulate the gauntlet. The gauntlet is the barrier between worlds. Correspondence is way too much fun. Yes, I enjoy playing correspondence. Correspondence enforces, but this game, correspondence is just the ability to just be like, no, I want to be over there, or teleport over there, or break stuff over this game, move over there, or do stuff at a distance. It's just too much fun. Basically, Spirit 3 is pierce the gauntlet, step sideways, or rouse or lull spirits. So what this means is the fact that since they're at Spirit 3, whenever I'm planning a situation, I should probably take a bit of thought and care in terms of what type of spirits are likely to be found in a given location. If I'm having them fight in a slaughterhouse, okay, you're going to have spirits of death and destruction and loss. If they're on a street, you're going to have spirits of travel and maybe commerce, but maybe people and other stuff like that. If you're in a particular warehouse or something like that, okay, this is the type of thing which have happened here. So these are the type of spirits which are going to be here because this character is going to want to be able to open up that thing and be able to manipulate that, pull that, push that, be able to play with those things. And if I don't think about them, that character is either going to be, basically in life 2, awakening a spirit, in simple life like bugs, which is basically awakening a spirit. Basically means the fact that you're like, hey, I want you to be sentient now. And then basically the thing is like, oh, okay. And then things get weird. But like, I'm putting the spirit of something outside, basically of something outside, and I'm putting it into something here. So I want, basically, I'm going to imbue this bug with a spirit of rage. You now have a very, very angry bug. That could be very, very dangerous. Basically to others in the area, as long as you direct that. They used to have a section which was just, here are some of the combined examples of magic. Just like, hey, here's some basic idea. Because what they tend to do is they tend to be like, basically, essentially with magic, there's a lot of, hey, I'm doing this free form, I'm making my own thing up and I'm doing it. Or there's a, you have done this 600 times, you have figured this out, it is essentially a spell for you. Like, I want to do a fireball. And so I've figured out the math on what fireball is and how fireball works and what I need to do to actually make a fireball, basically, that does certain things. And as such, basically, it is easier for you to do that. There's an official PDF of how you do that. There it is. How do you do that? That's one of the ones I need to make sure to pick up and basically make sure to distribute to people. Because it does a whole lot of, oh, hey, that's how that works. Basically just in terms of, oh, hey, what can I do with the abilities I have? But it's important for me, the GM, to know that, because I need to know, okay, how do these things work? What do I need to be prepared for? And then last, is our last character. Oh, hey, Tales of Initiative Day. Thanks for the raid. Woo! Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for stopping by. Hope you guys were having a good time. Basically, hope you were, basically, whatever is going on. Woo! Playing something, I assume. That's usual activities for Tales of Initiative. Tales of Initiative are awesome people playing some awesome games. So hope you guys were having a good time. Hope whatever was happening went well. We are here talking about basically running and planning out a mage, basically a Mage 20. Sorry, rather, let me get it correct. Mage the Ascension 20th anniversary, the Victorian Age adventure is what we are planning out here today. So right now I am talking through, looking at the characters, building them out, and discussing basically how I would store that information in LoreLink so that I can pull it up, and when I'm building stuff out later, how I could use that to better plan, because Mage is its own, basically, its own wonderful world where it is very, very creative and you could do a bunch of really cool things. But as a storyteller, GM, DM, however you want to call them, you need to be kind of prepared for that. And so that starts with knowing what your characters can do. Because we're doing basically this, by the way, I should probably also say, is all done in service of a one-shot of Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition, The Victorian Age. We are going to be running on Friday, 1 p.m. on this channel with the LoreLink players. So all of that will be what's going on there. And so I will be using LoreLink to run that stuff, run that game using the stuff I'm putting in right now. I'm going to be planning it out for a little bit more on stream, just to kind of give the idea and talk through some of the difficulties with Mage. And then I will be going through and finishing this out. And then on Friday, you will see the finished planning that I have done, because the planning screen will be right on screen so that everyone who is watching can see. Hopefully not the players won't be paying attention to that as I run the game online for them, running a one-shot. So the last character I am looking at for them in Mage is, I am looking at Mike's character, and Mike is playing the Gentleman Assassin, because, as Mike said, he saw Gentleman Assassin and then kind of stopped. All right, so that is Sakram. That is Michael's character. The short description for that character is Gentleman Assassin. Yep. And what I've been doing is basically, these are pre-made characters because I'm starting with, basically, rather than making my characters go through and learn new systems every time they play, I tend to want to hand them, because I am bouncing through as a GM because we're showing off Lorelink, and it's basically how it works in different systems. And so I don't want to make my players learn and build new characters every time we try a new system. I generally try to pull from pre-made adventures that already exist, and basically at least get the pre-made characters to them, even if the adventure I end up building ends up being its own thing. So in this particular case, I am pulling from the Jumpstart for Jumpstart? Quick Start? I think it's a Jumpstart. I said that and I immediately thought it's wrong because of the fact that Magic the Gathering has Jumpstart now. But basically, I think it is the Jumpstart guide. Is the Jumpstart guide for the, I'm just going to call it M20 Victorian Age. M20 Victorian Age Adventure, The Seance on St. James Street. That one is definitely much more of a sandboxy type adventure. I'm pushing for a little bit more, hey, let's, basically, because these characters hasn't necessarily gotten the full playing of it, that's a little bit more sandboxy than what I'm looking for. So I'm doing a little bit more action adventure-y type of build I'm going to be building off of. And I'm building off of another existing one, which is in the YouTube comments. It's not in here because there's not a really good place to put it. But it's called, somebody put a guide to Hollow Earth in. And for those who are not aware, Hollow Earth is a concept which has existed. Basically, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about it. The idea that inside the Earth there is a primordial land where all the dinosaurs and stuff like that, which did exist, just went into there at some point. And they hang out there, basically, and they have cool adventures, and basically it's a really cool place to go running around and doing adventures and other stuff. And so basically, as such, it oftentimes is a lot of Victorian or 20s or things like that, because it is the unknown frontier of, oh, hey, we've explored a place which is untouched by time. And so Mage went, yeah, everybody thinks it's a really cool place that's untouched by time that totally existed, but maybe it didn't. So it actually does exist in Mage. It's its own umbral realm, so it's its own fantastical place where you can have really cool fantastical adventures. Which is why I am setting part of the adventure there, because it lets you throw dinosaurs into your adventure, and who doesn't want to have the chance to take on dinosaurs? So let's do this quickly here, because I'm starting to run. I want to get into some of the other aspects of this, and I don't want to spend all day doing characters, as important as they are. Line breaks. Paste that in. Let's pull the important stuff. Okay, the things which are important. So he is affiliation Chakravanti, which are the assassin mages. They become the no, they don't become the Nephanti. Euthanatoi. They become the Euthanatoi later. Who are, as you might guess from the name, kind of obsessed with death and using death in magic. They are probably the closest to necromancers. They're like assassin necromancers. Which basically, of course, makes me think of Gideon the Ninth and basically those books. Chakravanti is their current name. They used to be Euthanatoi. Oh, okay. Like, it's got both of their names listed in this Victorian book. I could see it make sense that they would switch it to a basically a more appropriate cultural name, and basically kind of ground it in a particular culture rather than just we thought we have a cool Latin name. Okay. I had thought that they are basically that it was giving both names in there. It may be just a, yeah, they did rename several traditions. Yeah, basically they have done sometimes Onyx Path slightly better than several other studios. Basically acknowledging, hey, we borrowed a lot from basically we did some heavy cultural appropriation because we wanted our book to be cool and edgy, and as such, we just kind of borrowed stuff and then used it in a completely wrong way. And so they've done a good job of going back and renaming stuff and being a little bit more sensitive, and they've been sometimes successful, sometimes not. It's basically sometimes it's basically, and it's usually basically a lot of that happens because of the fact that they do a great job of being like, no, we're being more sensitive now. Are you going to actually talk to the people whose stuff you're referring to? No, we're not. Basically, we hired one of them and they gave us advice, and then we didn't listen to them. But that's the new edition of Werewolf, and we don't. This is something different. We'll move on. Okay, so there's our essence for this character, Crusader, Bon Vivant. So great. This is going to be our a little bit more of our go-getter. Let's look at our character stats. So this one is primary and physical. So we do have it. We do at least have a good balance. We have someone who is primary in each of the three attributes at least. They are in fact double specialized in dexterity, nimble, and stamina tireless. Okay, so there's our, let's get in there, secondary and social. And tertiary and mental. Okay. Then on abilities, let's see here. Their primary is knowledges and abilities. Interesting. No specialties there. Secondary and talents. And tertiary and skills. All right. And last is going to be, this is where things get interesting. Their spheres are entropy 2, life 2, which is messy, and prime 2. So, interestingly enough, so entropy is the idea everything degrades. Basically, is both basically everything degrades, everything basically wears down over time. So if you're looking for effects which are like eroding and things like that, that's going to be entropy. Entropy is also tend to use entropy as your chance magic. So it's a lot of, hey, what are the odds that this happens? What are the odds of a coin flip, a roll the dice, a roulette ball, etc., etc. That's kind of basically dealing with the randomness of the universe's entropy. Life, we've already talked about, the idea of interacting with living things, and prime is interacting with magic itself. Basically, the idea of basically doing things with magic. If you're wanting to affect the ability to use magic, or the ability to basically to empower magic, or remove magic, or affect things which are imbued with magic, or sense magical things, all of that is going to fall under prime. Like prime 1, as we discussed before, the 1s tend to be perception. So prime 1 is going to be your detect magic. Whereas basically in prime 2, you're starting to be able to pull magic out of things, and basically maybe put it into other things. Or basically, and so you're able to like make your stuff more powerful because you have prime, because you're able to interact with that. Basically, fuel pattern, construct patterns, enchant pattern, body of light. Is basically how the book kind of describes it. It's the idea of the fact that you're like, hey, I want to make a wholly magical construct. That's going to be prime. Or I want to imbue something with a part of my magic, that's going to be prime, and things like that. And so matter could build it, prime could do it. Basically, matter and life, basically, prime and life means the fact that they can interact with basically others, helping others with magic, possibly pulling magic out of people or putting magic into people and helping push, basically, reinforce their ability to control stuff. Um, and basically, and so putting all of the basically that's a nasty little combination. Let's see, what's under entropy 2? Um, Entropy 2 is control probability. High. Basically, entropy 1 is just, I can tell the way directions are leading. So basically, entropy 1 would be if you walked up to a table and being like, hey, I want to sense who is more likely, who's on a hot streak, who's more likely to win, who's more likely to continue winning. Basically, that's entropy 1. You're kind of sensing that flow of fate and fortune, figuring things out. If you're looking at a, because I was just basically because it's been basically been the rage. Squid Games. If you're like, hey, which one of this glass is more likely to break on purely random chance? Oh, okay, it's likely to be. That's your sensing probability. Controlling probability is like, I want to make sure that the ball lands here. This card gets drawn after they shuffle, etc., etc. So that's what you're doing with those. Basically, so entropy and life, basically putting those together means you're doing stuff like, I want him to basically, what are the odds that basically if I hit his knee in this particular spot, I want to influence the chance that he has a weak knee, or he's always had a genetic disposition towards basically this knee giving out, or basically being a trick knee, or basically pushing under pressure. That you're getting into basically kind of basically into probability in life. Basically note that that's not basically being able to just point at somebody and be like, hey, you're starting to decay and rot from within. That's dislocatable shoulder and basically lethal weapon, things like that. It's that, basically kind of the idea of basically if I hit something, basically something good or bad could happen because of what I did, how I pulled it. If I randomly close my eyes and pull something, it's the right thing. That's going to be entropy. Entropy in life means you're affecting people. Entropy in prime is basically random chances of magic and things like that. So it's all of those cool things. So basically, we're actually at 6:23, so I'm going to kind of pick things up a little bit and keep talking here. So, now that I've got that done, let's talk about how I'm going to plan out this adventure in M20 Victorian Age. Again, basically, I've talked about a little bit earlier the idea of the fact that this part of the planning session is going to be a little bit, basically, you have two options with Mage. You can either underplan or overplan, essentially. Because of the fact that you've got basically now we've put our players and we've got an idea for what type of interaction they are. So none of them have forces. So I know that I'm not necessarily going to deal with a group which is going to be like, hey, basically throwing fireballs, setting buildings on fire, basically exploding stuff. That's forces. None of them have that level of magic, and so they're less likely to do that. Basically, they have a lot of spirit, they have mental, they have entropy. They're going to be I say a little bit more subtle. I know the lower league players, and I know that there are limits on their patience, as it were. And basically, it's a one shot. People tend to want to be more aggressive, want to push more with one shot characters than they necessarily do with basically a longer term campaign. So I need to basically put them into situations. So I have a basic outline. So the basic outline of this adventure is the idea of the fact that the players are going to be asked by by a contact that they have, hey, this individual basically isn't your normal cup of tea. This individual isn't someone you normally work with, but they've reached out to the player characters, whether through contacts or whether directly because of past interactions with them. They've reached out to them and been like, "Hey, I'm looking to make amends, but I have fears that I'm being actively pursued, and so I need a group to help me right a wrong." And they're going to show up, and they're going to see that the person that they're trying to they've been contacted by is getting bundled off by nefarious characters. Then they will presumably, I hope my player characters will interfere and attempt to deal with that. If not, we'll have a completely different adventure on our hands. I'll make one up on the fly, and then we'll go from there. They'll be like, "Hey, I need you to do X thing in Hollow Earth," because I've talked about that. So I want you to do X thing in a Hollow Earth. So I need a group of people who have a particular kind of set of skills, as it were, to go on this short little adventure and take item A, bring it to point B. Cool. And then of course, when you get to point B, something will happen. I'm being a little bit vague because of the fact that the players are in here. And I also haven't planned it out fully. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit here. And then they'll have to deal with that situation, and then you succeeded, come back and leave. Something, things are happening. So in terms of that, I can either build there are several key things. Like we talked about several events. So we've got the rescuing the professor is the first one. Professor's quest would be another one. Exploring Hollow Earth. And then keep things intriguing. Replacing the sun. Okay, so basically, those are some basic plot beats that I have for these are 4 kind of events that I want to have happen. So I'm gonna put those down, and then I'm going to probably build 4 different kind of locations. Like, and this is where it gets a little bit like, okay, how much do I want them to how much do I want to plan here? Because I can look at this group and go, if they show up in a situation and they see the character being dragged off, are they going to confront there out in the open? Are they going to follow them back and then confront them wherever they go? Or are they going to do some third option I haven't thought of? I have to be a little bit flexible, because it's like, well, I have some idea. Like, okay, this group is a little bit more subtle. This group is, we've got a cowboy who might just start shooting. It's possible. But the rest of the characters, one has mind, the other one has mind and spirit, one has entropy. So okay, maybe they're going to be a little bit more subtle, but that may take place either outside, like immediately right there, or maybe that's I have to think of. Let's think of 2 things, 2 places where the confrontation could take place. So outside the professor's house is the obvious one. Let's go ahead and change that to being in London. And then we'll create a second kind of category. Earth. And the reason why I'm creating those 2 things is because essentially the game will operate under kind of 2 different sets of rules for those 2 different sets of locations. London being in the physical, actual reality will have 1 set of rules when it comes to interacting with magic, while Hollow Earth being an umbral realm, being a place of magic and basically cultivated by spirits and things like that, is going to have a different set of rules when it comes to magic. And I'm going to want to be able to keep track of each of those and remind myself, how do things work? For example, for London, I may want to write down basically like, I'm using the term vulgar. It's not vulgar in M20. I always forget. Um, but it's the idea of the fact that there are basically different levels of magic that can occur when you are interacting with different types of basically different types of people, and basically how strong reality is in a given place. That's the term they use. Um, there's elegant magic and uncanny magic. And yes, they very deliberately magic is spelled with a K. That was a decision that was made long ago that they have made copious amounts of ink over, spilled copious amounts of inks over why we spell magic with a K, in basically Mage, the Ascension. The idea is basically in Victorian, and what they kind of push for the 20th anniversary is it is with a K because that is basically to distinguish it. It is not basically just tricks and things like that. It is the idea, the grand idea, the formal idea of this reality shaping magic. And so it needs the K to basically show how much it is an element of basically the people's will, an element of reality. I have a good rolls, and I have a it is because back then someone wanted to do it because they thought it looked good. But it is this that they have done a lot of stuff with this guy. I can't write that word and not give a brief explanation to people why I'm spelling magic with a K. But that is the given thing. Basically, there's elegant magic, uncanny magic, and catastrophic magic. Are the three levels of magic that can exist in Victorian Age. Magic. Basically, elegant magic is the idea of the fact that elegant magic is magic that is indistinguishable from something that could actually happen, and it's just really lucky that it happens at that particular time. Someone walking away, basically, someone walks up to your character and says, "Hey, you're under arrest." And you're like, "Oh no, officer, you've got the wrong person. The person you're looking for went that way." And the officer goes, "Oh, thank you, citizen," and walks off that way. That's no one, basically, people watching that, unless something weird happens. Okay, that could happen. That's understandable. That's elegant magic. If he does it and says basically basically you just say, "You will leave me alone," basically because I am a great and powerful wizard, and they repeat, "Yeah, I will leave you alone because I have a great and power because you are a great and powerful wizard," then wander off. Now you're getting into uncanny magic. You're getting into the people start to take notice. Because of that, reality starts to take notice and be like, "Hey, you're breaking the rules. Stop that. We're going to pay attention to you. You're going to basically, it's harder to do because reality is paying more attention to you, and there's more of a consequence for it." And then last is catastrophic magic. Catastrophic magic is, I don't want that building there anymore. And you tell reality that building doesn't exist. Whether it's entropy magic, where you're like, that building crumbles to dust, or basically forces magic where it just explodes, or matter magic where you're like, it's not actually made of brick and stone but of mud and water. That's catastrophic magic. Reality definitely takes notice. Reality definitely basically kind of pokes at you and says, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that," and starts to have an effect on you, and you start to pay the price for that. And so those are the three levels. So basically in London, basically all three levels are active. And then but we might want to say, basically, and I might write more descriptions of what that means in terms of, hey, basically that means that difficulty equals the highest, basically +3. For uncanny, difficulty is +4. And then for catastrophic, 5. But for Hollow Earth, I might choose to change that up and have different levels for this and say, basically, elegant or uncanny. And then write reminder text of what those are. And do that. And because I'm writing it in the child description, what that lets me do is if I create a place underneath it, like we created that outside the professor's house, when I'm running that encounter and things are happening, I have that note there to remind me, hey, what's the difficulty for things which are going on? Basically in London type situations. I don't have to go back up. I don't have to go back to the rule book to check. I've got that note right there that tells me that. And that way I don't have to keep looking up and remembering what I set the difficulty at for a particular thing or area, because this can change area to area as well. I could choose to overwrite it and I could say, in the streets, yes, it's this, but this is a magical ley line, etc., etc. Difficulty is lower here because magic is in the air. And I can lower the difficulties in a particular area for all the rooms inside of a house, which is built on a ley line, for example. I could do that, and I could build that down there, so I could have notes for, okay, in London it's this, but in this house it's this. If they blow outside of the house during the fight, I still have that London note still there because this location is still in London, and so I can keep track of it faster than having to go back and reconsult stuff. The other thing I would use this for, and the other thing I'm going to use this for, is when I'm building out, basically remembering that I've already talked about spirit, because we have a spirit caster in the group, I need to keep track of spirits. And so what I'm likely going to do is I'm going to basically take some time and think about, okay, basically, London. Basically, and I'm going to write down basically, okay, basically like, basically spirits of industry, smog, basically rat, basically things like that. Like, okay, here are some spirits that basically I think are common to be in the area that I want to basically, that I don't want to have to go back and look up or rethink of whenever 20's character interacts with her spirit powers, and been like, I expose, basically, is there anything interesting spirit wise in the area that I can basically I can pull in? Oh yeah, there's a spirit of rage in the area. Basically, I can roll a die to see what's more common in this particular area, but I can have these examples for me here, and if I want to break it down on a particular area to include, hey, this is a slaughterhouse, so these spirits are more prevalent, I can then emphasize those in the notes. But I want to, again, because the idea for basically running this mage session is going to be, I'm going to have to be doing a lot of stuff on the fly. I'm going to have to be doing a lot of, hey, wait, what's going on with X or Y, or what happens if they do X or Y or Z, or get X or Y and Z involved. So I am probably going to take this from a standpoint of, I want to have the basic outlines done. I'm going to want to have stats for stuff. I'm going to want to have stats for basically some common opponents that I'm going to want to put in their way, common obstacles, so that I could be like, oh, okay, cool. This is basically, here's a common obstacle to run into. If they decide that they're going to take someone and influence them, and be like the mind person, for example, I'm going to want to have willpower values kind of set up in creatures. I'm probably going to want to have something like a common Londoner, and just have some basic, like, okay, here's their willpower. Actually, it's this era, probably 3. Just so I have that information down already, so that, because I'm going to have to be doing a lot of thinking on my feet in this, and anything I can do to remove just a little bit of that difficulty from me is going to save me mental strain and stress for later. And so I'm going to get that, write it down, put it into here. Basically when I'm finished with all of it, I'm going to build it all into a session. Link players. And basically, again, this is happening this Friday at 1 p.m. So come by and catch us there. And then I'm going to basically 1 p.m. Eastern. I should actually specify that. 1 p.m. Eastern. That would be 9 a.m. Pacific. I think 10 a.m. Mountain. Noon. No. 10 a.m. Pacific. Basically 11 a.m. Mountain. Noon Central. There we go. But basically, so now that I've done that, I can throw all of these different things in here. Like London, Hollow Earth, outside the professor's house, those commoners I just talked about, all of those things and all of those events. I can dump them all together. Basically into here and be like, okay, cool. Now I have one place to keep track of all these while I'm playing the game, so I'm not doing a lot of jumping around, basically trying to remember, okay, what did I have set up for this particular situation? Hey, did I have any common policemen? Basically coppers, basically villains, thugs, basically street urchins, etc., etc. Did I come up with those? Oh, great, I have those under game objects. And so all of these I can have set up here in one place, so I have an easy place to look for them all, look them up, and basically know the fact that, okay, and if basically as we go through, I can mark things off, so if we get interrupted partway through, basically I can decide, later, Tony, I can basically go, okay, we completed this, and there we go. Basically, now I have that done. I can save that. I can then either export. Basically, I can export the incompleted ones into their own new session if I wanted to, or I could basically create new ones. And that, but I can just use it as notes next time I come back. Be like, how far did we get? Oh, right, I did this and this, but we didn't get to actually get to Hollow Earth. Cool. All of that, basically, all of that can be found inside of a session. So I'm just taking care of that. Again, basically making my life a little bit easier because it's going to be a whole lot of bouncing around, figuring things out. All right. I am basically running over time, as it were. But so, basically to recap, again, thanks to Tales, basically to Tales of Initiative for the raid. But so basically to recap everything we talked about here, basically this is LoreLink. This is our campaign management tool. I've been talking about running a mage 20th anniversary edition, The Victorian Age adventure that we're going to be running live on stream using LoreLink here on Friday, basically January, I almost said December, January 17th, 2025. You can come check us out there at 1 p.m. Eastern. That will basically, if you want the easiest way to be reminded when we go live, you can follow this stream. Click on that follow button. It's free. We greatly appreciate it. It basically gives you a quick and easy reminder of, hey, there's people will talk about that cool thing here. Oh, it actually went live at this time because it's outside of their normal time. It also lets you know when we're doing other things, like when Mike streams his quest for the basically Quest for the Frozen Flame, which is him doing a long-term Pathfinder 2nd Edition campaign. He talks about that usually the first Monday of the month, sometimes second Monday. And sometimes we have other streams that show up and pop in, or basically or happen. Following is a great way to keep your eyes on that, and it also helps us because it raises us in the awareness of basically in Twitch and basically in things like that, and helps us get the word out. It's great. If you happen, basically, if you want to be like, hey, I think you're really cool and I enjoy what you're doing, so I'd love to support you, basically, easiest way, basically, in terms of basically the streaming side of things, is you can basically subscribe to this channel. Even if you don't have to necessarily give money, if you have an Amazon Prime Gaming, if you have Amazon Prime, you can use your Prime Gaming account to link to your Twitch account and basically give a free sub to one streamer of your choice. We would be greatly honored if you give that to us. We basically always appreciate that. We are more than honored to take Jeff Bezos' yacht money and give it to us, which we will only spend it on. I've always said we will never spend it on yachts. We will never spend them on physical yachts. Only in-game yachts. The only place we actually spend that any money you gave us. So that is a great way to basically to support us in that way. If you want to catch more of these videos, whether you want to catch the earlier part of the stream, or want to see the previous planning stream where I talk more about Mage in World of Darkness in general, or you want to see some of the other streams and other systems that we've done, check out our YouTube channel. That archives all of our streams on our YouTube channel. So those are available there. You can also go to our systems page, and basically on our website, and that lists all the systems that we've gone through and done very similar things to this. And if we've basically done planning sessions, the videos are linked there. If we've done actual gameplay sessions, the videos are also linked right in there. So you can see all the various systems that we've gone through in the last 2 years or so. So all those cool systems and things like that are right there for you. Also, while you're on that website, if you're interested in LoreLink, you can check it out there. You go to the Get Started page right there on LoreLink. You can be able to sign up for a free LoreLink account. We are offering right now the LoreLink. Basically, we are still finishing up all the work we're doing for Kickstarter and things like that, but free accounts are available at our basic level, which all the stuff I've talked about here is available in that basic level. The paid levels have also additional cool features like the ability to have maps with markers on them and being able to do things like that. Player sharing is a feature of basically, which is basically being able to share with your players. If you're like, hey, I don't want to just run this as a one-shot. I want to be able to share things with my players as they happen during the adventure. That is a paid tier account, and those will be coming soon, but they're not here yet. But the free accounts are available and free and let you do everything we've just talked about here today. So sign up for those. Those are available on that website on the Get Started page. And last and not least, of course, if you want to keep up with LoreLink basically when we're not streaming, you can check out our social media stuff. If you want to interact on social media, basically we have a Blue Sky account. Basically, what the account, the social media we have deemed the least horrible and basically terrible and brain rotting for our poor communications manager. Is Blue Sky. We are there. We run all sorts of interesting information through there. We talk about streams, what streams are coming, streams are going live, new features and things like that. We also do fun things like, hey, one like equals one book from our library one book for our game library that we want to play. Basically, we also just did one recently. The communication manager, Tony, did one where one like equals one game from his Steam library that he didn't realize he had or had that it hasn't played. And so those are great. And if you're like, hey, I don't interact with social media at all because, as 20 has pointed out, that's dumpster fire. We do offer newsletters on that website, on that Get Started page. There is a newsletter you can sign up for, which can give you a condensed version of all the information about what LoreLink is doing in the past month, what stuff is coming up, new features, basically all that stuff. All of that, giveaways and things like that we occasionally do, or all that is run through our newsletter. You can sign up for that. It's a once-a-month thing. We don't spam your inbox. We just try to have fun, cool newsletters go out once a month. And that is a relatively safe way that you can stay basically stay inside of it. Basically don't venture out into the muck. You can check out those newsletters right there. So all that to say, thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Tales of Initiative for rating. And basically hope you'll join us back here 1 p.m. Friday, January 17th. I keep wanting to say December. January 17th, check us out playing Mage 20th Anniversary, The Victorian Age, A Journey to Hollow Earth. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.